All right, it's 9 o'clock. And Chairman Berman calling to order the Finance and Budget Committee of Kane County on Wednesday, January 26th. Do we have roll call, please?
Leonard,
Leonard here.
Ford,
Ford present.
Martin,
Martin present.
Sanchez,
Sanchez here.
Sturgis,
Sturgis here.
Tepe,
Tepe here.
Hurog, Shepro,
Shepro present.
Berman.
Berman's here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Need a motion and a second to approve our minutes from December.
Ford moves.
Tepe seconds.
Ford moved.
Ford moved, Tempe
Tempe.
second.
Tepe seconds.
Very good, thank you.
Roll call.
Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I have no knowledge of public comments. Is there any online that for public comments? Hearing none, we're going into Treasurer Kilborn's report.
Good morning. The report is on file. What you will note is our investment returns have steered up, and that's in direct relationship to the return we're getting on the bonds. And that is fortunate. The unfortunate part is the inflation that we're facing. And I think I've talked about this the last couple of times. Over the last week, the inflation level has come out as 7% nationally. In the Midwest region, which includes Illinois, it's 7.5. In Chicago, Elgin, and Naperville, it's 6.6%. So the Fed has had discussions in reference to raising rates and tightening their policy, which is what they will do to address inflation over the next year. The Fed is looking at anywhere from 2 to up to 5 different rate changes to address inflation. Remember, the Fed has a two-pronged policy. They want to address inflation and employment. And that's why they can't do anything too quickly. But that's where we sit today. Within the past week and a half, Carolyn and I met with Trustee Sanchez, Board Member Sanchez, and other members to discuss the American Rescue Act. In reference to earlier this year, we did invest some of those funds to get at least some more monies back as they were sitting there waiting. But in discussions, we will now be able to make available to the board all those funds necessary that you want to spend and send out to our community in a timely manner.
Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Kilborn, those investments, they were short-term and very liquid, correct?
That's correct. Yes, short-term. As we discussed, you, myself, and Joe Onzik discussed earlier, it was a short-term parking and they were liquid, but it was better than sitting in a bank at a bank account rate.
Absolutely.
But they are available, will be available as the board here wants to spend them and give them out to the community.
But right now, they're still in that safe spot.
Well, they're in a mixture of in a bank account. We do have some in commercial paper and T-bill, but we'll be able to access and get any funds under the American Rescue Act that the board wants to spend.
Perfect. Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions of Mike? Thank you very much. And moving on to our finance report for Mr. Hanzik. Joe, are you available? There he is.
Good morning.
Morning.
I apologize for being late. Included in the financial agenda would be the normal year-to-date budget variance reports. Since it is for the month of December, it's the very first month. And the only thing I really have to comment on would be that you might see some large variances at the beginning of the year, and they're normally due to timing. For example, that's when we have our insurance payments are made at the very beginning of the year. There's also large transfers that are made at the beginning of the year, for example, from the Riverboat Fund to all the departments for the internal grants. And so that shows up as expense on the Riverboat side, and then the revenue on the individual department sides. There's also some variances that I've just tried to explain. They're minor variances at the beginning of the year, and we'll continue to watch them as we progress through the year. The beginning of my report, I might mention the FY21 audit. We've just completed the preliminary audit field work that had went very well in terms of everyone cooperating by providing the requested information for the auditors. The final field work is scheduled to begin on March 7th. And then, as we've periodically mentioned, new for fiscal year 2021 is the implementation of the accounting and financial reporting changes that are required by what's known as GASB 84, and that's regarding fiduciary activities. So what has in the past been presented as agency funds in the county's financial statements will be reclassified to custodial funds. And then there's changes in how they're accounted for, where we'll actually see revenues and expenditures for most of them, whereas that has not been the case until now. And Baker Tilly will be assisting with implementing those changes. Just to kind of give you a reminder of what the year-end timeline is like, Finance is currently preparing the year-end reconciliations and adjustments and the accruals and the audit schedules that go along for the final audit. So we've got quite a bit of work to do. We're somewhat behind internally, mostly on my side, in trying to pull all this together. The general fund revenue will not really be known until the end of January. So we're just getting to the point where we can have a better idea of what the revenue will be like. One of the final pieces will be to finish compiling all the investment revenue and allocating it to the funds, and then doing the final market value adjustment, which could be a significant adjustment. And so it's not really until that adjustment is made that we'll have really a true picture of what revenue will be like. And then general fund expenses will really not be known until the end of February in terms of the total amount, because we're still accruing those expenses and paying invoices that have come in late for expenditures that are related to 2021. And then once we have a good idea of what revenue and expenditures will be, that's when we will know how much excess revenue over expenditures we'll have. And then we can make a decision as to how it'll be allocated into our reserves and planning for the future. Both 1099s and W-2s are being prepared by Finance Department and Payroll Department. That's quite an undertaking, and so that's what they're focused on right now. As far as the remaining transition audits, we still have the final one for the Treasurer's Office for when Mr. Kilborn, at that point in time in which he began. And then we have the transition in the Human Resource Department of the Executive Director. And so that the information that was necessary for that had been collected during the preliminary audit fieldwork, which was this past week. So they're just about getting to the end of those. Okay, I already commented on the budget variances. The results of the cost of service study, I believe I've mentioned already. Most of the recommendations for user fee increases were made as a result of the study and recommendations from the sheriff. And so these are significant changes that were made with his fee structure. And I believe there's an ordinance coming through that'll be on this agenda for you to consider to approve. Based on last year's revenue, it looks like these fee changes on an annual basis would increase revenue approximately $500,000. I did provide you with a sales tax well, actually, it's all of the shared and direct state tax revenue that is received by the general fund. So we have sales tax, local use tax, RTA sales tax, state income tax, personal property replacement tax. So this would be like the final tally for the fiscal year. As you can see, we're $10 million over what had been budgeted and almost $8 million over where we were at the prior year. We did not know when we put the budget together, how well the economy would have approved at this point. So it's, actually very exciting and encouraging to see that it had done so this well. And then part of that additional unexpected revenue was we did not budget for the additional revenue that we'd be receiving from the cannabis sales tax. And so that's included here as well. But this is a very good way to end the year. Health insurance fund monitoring, we still don't have final figures for FY21. We still have a couple of accruals to make that will both increase on the revenue side, the contribution side from employers and employees, and then also on the expense side, which would be for claims that were incurred during the fiscal year, but not yet submitted until after the fiscal year. And so in about a month, we'll have an estimate of what those additional expenses will be. But at this point, we have a cash balance of $7.3 million in the fund. And our goal, of course, still remains at the recommended $9 million. Just a quick update on the capital funds for fiscal year 21. For building management side, there was 67% expended. Information technology was 57% expended. The sheriff, 0% expended only because that's where we had put in the $4.4 million for his camera camera replacement project. And so that was done at the end of the year. And so that's going to be carried forward to the new year. And then, of course, we have the multi-use facility, which, as far as what was budgeted, 79% had been expended. As we end fiscal year 2021, we still have $737,000 in the contingency fund. A portion of that will be used to adjust the coroner's budget for the additional autopsy expenses, and we'll have that final figure probably for next finance committee. And then we're starting the year with a new $1 million contingency for fiscal year 2022 that obviously hasn't been touched yet. And then in terms of our reserve balances, we have almost $4.5 million of COVID savings from COVID payroll reimbursements, and this is carried over from fiscal year 2020. We're already talking about how we might use that to temporarily fund expenses that have already been reimbursed from the American Rescue Plan, that it's possible that those expenses, rather than being reimbursed from the American Rescue Plan, may be eligible for reimbursement from FEMA. And so what we're thinking of doing is reversing the reimbursement from the American Rescue Plan, at least until we know for sure what the status will be with FEMA, submitting those expenses to FEMA. But as a holding place, we need to put these expenses and fund those expenses with another source of funding if we're not going to fund it with American Rescue Plan dollars. And so these savings from COVID payroll reimbursements would be the ideal source that we could use temporarily to fund those expenses until we're either reimbursed from FEMA or the ultimate reimbursement would be from American Rescue Plan. So I hope I didn't confuse you with that, but I thought this would be a good point to mention that. And then, of course, we're still carrying over $125,000 that was set aside by the judiciary for the JJC build out, and will be used and drawn down at the point that that project is complete. We have about $400,000 remaining in the Property Tax Freeze Protection Fund as a result of using the majority of it balanced the fiscal year 2022 budget. And we have $5.2 million in the reserve, emergency reserve. The American Rescue Plan funding status. Now, I know you also receive a report from the American Rescue Plan Committee that's presented by the consultant. So I don't, mean to cause confusion by presenting my own report. I just thought you might appreciate, in case it's helpful, the snapshot from my viewpoint as to what I'm aware of in terms of what's already been allocated and budgeted, and what the estimates I have in terms of revenue recoupment and personnel expense reimbursement. We did find out late, I think a week or two ago, with the latest final, or the issuing of the final rule regarding the use of American Rescue Plan funds, that we're allowed to use up to 5.2% in terms of calculating revenue recoupment. We had been using 4.1% up until that point. So if we did use 5.2% in that last column in my report, I show you what that will look like in terms of the increased amount of revenue recoupment we'd be allowed to take if we chose to do so. So at this point, I'd be looking for direction from, I guess, the American Rescue Plan Committee as to which percentage I should use, so that I can update the revenue recoupment for fiscal year 2020 that we've already approved and allocated, and then to know which percentage to use for fiscal year 2021, as I need to be making those final entries in the next few weeks. Another item that, in terms of what has developed over the last month, is that the Sheriff's Office shared with us a report that they received from the Department of Treasury, which was an audit of sorts of the equitable sharing program that the Sheriff's Office participates in. So it was over a course of a 3-year period of time. They looked at expenditures and revenues and how they were recorded. And this is one of those bank accounts, or actually 2 separate bank accounts that the sheriff maintains, in which these transactions were flowing through. And then we attempt to record them manually into the ledger at the end of each year. But as part of their findings, they found some things that needed to be corrected. And so Mr. Hunt has been assisting us with doing a reconciliation to figure out how to make those corrections. And then one of the other recommendations from the Department of Treasury is that those bank accounts be closed and that those funds be transferred into the Treasurer's Office bank account, and then they would flow through our normal accounting procedures in terms of revenues being receipted and expenditures going through the accounts payable system. So it'll be a transition, a change for us, and we're working with the Sheriff's Office to make that transition. It'll take a little time because we have 3 years worth of transactions to sort out, but at the same time, we need to get this cleaned up in time to close this year. So we do have a limited window to accomplish this. And it may be then the beginning of doing a transition where we can incorporate other, what we're terming off-sheet bank account, off-balance sheet bank accounts. These are bank accounts that are not held by the Treasurer's Office, through which transactions are flowing. We may be able to move others of those to the Treasurer's Office using our process that we'll be developing now as a way to do that. And that was one of the goals that we've had for a long time. And so this may be a way to begin progress in that area. And as far as the purchasing report, just briefly, there was one bid for a sheriff's storage room. There was requests for quotes for potable water testing services, and 2 RFPs, one for asbestos lead and mold consultant and one for plumbing, mechanical, and maintenance service. Auction sales brought in about $8,800 in the month of December, and the fiscal year-to-date cost savings for fiscal year 2021 was almost $700,000. So that concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Madam Chairman?
Thank you. Mr. Onsick, you mentioned off-sheet bank accounts.
Yeah.
How many are there?
Oh, there's quite a number of them. I want to say it could be as many as 70. And many of them are with the elected official offices, but there's several of them that are legitimate. I mean, there's not an issue with them. Well, they're all legitimate bank accounts. It's just that they're more difficult to account for. And so we have worked with the auditors, our external auditors, as a way to make it the process more accountable. And so what we've developed with the auditor's assistance and with the agreement of the elected officials is they are providing us with copies, the finance department, of all of those bank statements every month and their reconciliation, so we can actually see what's going through. And then we record those into the ledger as best as we're able to interpret the information in terms of what the expenses are based on their descriptions. And so that's how it's accounted for and then finally audited at the end of the year.
So I know that there's nothing nefarious going on with this, but it seems a little confusing to me because we have a treasurer. We have a board who allocates the resources to the other elected officials, and they're in charge of managing their money appropriately. And they are allowed to set up separate bank accounts that. Do we have any idea how much money is in these accounts and what the purpose of this is for?
I can send you a listing of them. And so I could send you a list, maybe the year-end balances. It's part of the worksheet that's put together for the audit.
Mhm.
And then you would be able to see like who has what and what is the purpose of each one.
Is this standard operating procedure for counties?
As far, yes,
Shepro,
as far as I
question?
understand.
Yes, Shepro.
I seem to recall that some of those accounts are that by statute confined to somebody other than the treasurer. That it's not just a matter of the county board says, we want all these accounts to be managed by the treasurer's office.
That is my understanding as well. That's why nothing has changed. I mean, there's had been some improvements. Some accounts have been closed where they needed to be closed. More of them have been identified and are included in the financial statements than there used to be. But it's my understanding as well that the county board, finance department, we don't have control over those as far as whether they're opened or closed. So the best we can do is account for what's happening in those bank accounts as best as we are able to.
I guess the point is that in some instances, you'd have to change the statute to bring those funds within the ambit of the board or the treasurer's office.
That's probably true.
Could we possibly get, I know Mr. Sturgis asked for that document as well. Could we have perhaps a presentation at the next finance committee, a brief presentation about these, just so we're knowledgeable of them and what they're all about and what they entail, whether they're restricted by statute and what the purpose of it is for? It's just nice to know where the money is.
Right. I can reach out to the elected officials and see if they'd be willing to provide the statute. I mean, we do not have that information. We have what the bank account balances, the bank accounts are, what the balances are, but as far as the statutorial regulation over it, we do not have that information.
Okay.
Leonard.
Thank you, Chairman. I think Chairman Parag's idea of looking at this is a good idea. However, since there are so many and it's very complex, it might be better if we ask the departments to give us a summary of all of their internal accounts so that we have basically a summation of what all those accounts equal.
That's
and how many there are. And then if we need to dig more than that, we can. And also the understanding that many of these are dictated by statute.
And that just referenced the statute. So just we have just a guide.
Yeah, I think a summary sheet with the departments giving us how many sub-accounts they have and if they are dictated by statute or not. And I think most of them are. Then at least we know what's going on. And
It's just nice to know where the money is.
Yeah, well, I think we can see where the money is. I mean, that's obvious, but you want a definition of each specific account. And there are some internal workings in every department that might be a little bit complex to explain, but I think we can get a summary on
I
that.
think we can handle it.
Well, and we do have, as part of our annual audit, we have work papers that are put together. We do have that summary. It's not yet prepared for 2021, but within about a month or so, it will be ready. And we could certainly share that because that would be the most up-to-date information as far as the list and what the balances are. And then we would just need to ask the elected officials to fill in whatever statutory references that they may have.
That'd be perfect.
Yeah, I think we can wait for that.
No, yes, I agree.
Not that,
It's not critical, it's informational.
very good.
Mr. Chairman, Sanchez here.
Sanchez?
Thank you. Mr. Onzik, I just wanted to let you know, last week's meeting of the American Rescue Plan Committee, it was recommended that we go with the 4.1% number for the revenue loss formula. I apologize that you weren't informed. I thought you were, but the email chains get a little messy. So going forward, you can use 4.1% in your calculations.
Well, thank you for that. And one other thing, if I may just at least remind you of, I'll also need to know whether I need to do a calculation of the payroll reimbursement for fiscal year 21, if that's something that will be sought after for reimbursement from the American Rescue Plan or not. Because I don't know whether to spend a week calculating it or not.
All right, I'll follow up with you, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Chairman, Bates, please.
Madam Chairman first.
Oh, excuse me, Ms. Bates, just I'd like to follow up, Mr. Sanchez, just as a protocol, should that recommendation for the 4.1 go through the Finance Committee and then be decided upon by the entire board?
Yes, of course. Yes.
Yeah, that was, I think that was a yes.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
Madam Chair, I don't know what the should is on that. I just know we typically would start it in the American Rescue Plan Committee and then move it up to executive. But if everyone agrees that it should go to finance as well, then
I
I
think we
don't see
need a
any objection.
resolution.
That's fine. I think it should come before the Finance Committee and before the entire board. We're talking about a major decision.
$2 million.
Yes. So I think it needs to be discussed further. Ms. Bates?
So I have a question about the finances of the elected officials. Do we have any jurisdiction over that? I don't understand that whole relationship.
What details are you talking about?
Well, asking them for their bank accounts and their off-the-sheet bank accounts. Are they required to give us that information? Is it appropriate for us to ask for that information?
Yes.
Well, this is Director Onzik. I don't know if I can answer that question exactly, but what I can tell you is that all of the elected officials are cooperating and voluntarily providing that information to us on a monthly basis or sometimes quarterly basis. So they're already providing that to the finance department. And so we take that information and compile it into our year-end financial statements and post all of those transactions. So it all becomes part of the financial system. All those transactions are running through. It's just that we're putting them through manually as journal entries based on the activity in those bank accounts, rather than having those transactions be posted automatically by recording receipts, for example, through the financial system, or recording the expenses through the accounts payable system. Instead of going through accounts payable, they're recorded as a journal entry. So that's the difference. But they are providing all the information, and we've been very, I don't know whether they're required to or not, but we've been very pleased with their cooperation.
I think,
Okay,
Ms. Bates,
thank
I
you.
think you can say that every dollar that comes in and every dollar that goes out is reported to our finance department.
Yes, that's
Okay,
true.
thank you.
Good. Any other comments, questions of Razak?
Just a question on the last comment. Is it true, Director, that all the funds in all of these various accounts even if they're not under the county jurisdiction, are reported to your office?
Yes, and then the transactions that have taken place within those bank accounts are recorded in the general ledger. And so you'll find them in the appropriate fund at the end of the year as part of the financial statement. So if you look at the comprehensive annual financial report, that is the point at which all of this activity will finally be recorded and show up. Some of them are in agency funds, and some of them are in special revenue funds, and some of them are within the general ledger itself. It's just a separate line item rather than being, I think it's actually called cash not held by treasurer. It's a separate line item, but it's within all of that detail buried into the huge several hundred page financial statement, but it's all there.
Thank you.
Well, I must say that your report is very positive. Really enjoy the sales tax revenue. It's so thank you very much, Joe.
You're welcome.
Wait, did Joe actually just smile? Did he just smile? Look at that.
All right, moving on. Auditors report, Ms. Whiteman.
Good morning. My name is Kristen Jenkins. I'm from the auditor's office. Our report's on file. I just wanted to mention a few things. We do have our second intern for this semester, and we're really excited to keep that program going. And then we're including a different report this month. It's the accounts payable activity report. We'll include it every month. It's just a summary of what we do in our office for the accounts payable process. And I'll take any questions.
Any questions from the auditors? Very good. Thank you very much. Oh, moving on. New business. Resolution A. Authorizing correction of fiscal year 20 ARP revenue recoupment and related transfers and miscellaneous account number corrections. Mr. Onzik.
Yes, I would just like to explain that this resolution came out of that report from the Department of Treasury in which they identified the fact that the revenue coming in for the equitable sharing program is actually should be considered grant revenue, and we had been previously considering it as fee revenue. And so by reclassifying it as grant revenue, that then eliminates that source of revenue from the lost revenue recoupment calculation. And so I needed to pull that out and recalculate FY21's calculation, which reduced it about, I think it's $40,000. And so that's what this correction is doing.
Do we have a motion and a?
Leonard moves.
Surge second.
There's a second. Leonard moves. Any discussions or questions? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Surge yes.
Tepe,
Debbie, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Passes.
A resolution amending the fiscal year 21 budget rollover funds for GASB 84 implementation services. Mr. Onzik.
This is just a small amount.
$650.
Yes, it's just a small amount that that was not used as part of the finance budget last year that was intended to be used for auditing, additional auditing work that had to do with the transition audits. And so the savings we have there, we're just rolling forward or requesting that we roll forward to use to pay for the additional audit services that are needed to implement these changes required by GASB 84.
Do we have a motion to approve?
Ford moves.
Leonard moves. Ford second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Surge yes.
Tepe,
Debbie, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Passes.
Thank you. Item C, a resolution authorizing rollover funds and amending 2022 fiscal year budget on the state's attorney's office.
Leonard moves.
Burgess seconds.
Leonard moves, Sturgis second. Any discussion? There's $20,000 from the judicial public safety.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Leonard.
Yes, I think what that is being used for are the employee training and computer hardware rollover funds specifically.
Okay. Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Burgess, yes.
Tepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Item D, a resolution authorizing transfer of fiscal year 22 expedition budget from the state attorney's office to the sheriff's office, $30,000.
Ford moves.
Ford moves,
Pepe seconds.
Happy second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez,
was that a yes?
Jay, you got cut off.
Sanchez, yes.
Thank you. Sturgis,
Burgess, yes.
Tepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Passes.
Thank you. Item E, a resolution authorizing fiscal year 2022 budget adjustments from the Transportation Department.
Ford moves.
Ford move,
Pepe seconds.
Happy second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Burgess, yes.
Tepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Yes.
And item F, an ordinance increasing certain sheriff's user fees. I think an estimate of increase of $504,757. It's the first increase since 2014.
Yeah, November 14. Leonard moves.
Letter moves.
Burgess
Martin,
seconds.
second.
Second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Burgess, yes.
Tepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Passes.
Thank you. Item G, a resolution authorizing participation in the appellate prosecutor program from our Judicial Public Service Committee, $48,000.
Leonard moves.
Ford seconds.
Ford seconds, Leonard moves. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Burgess, yes.
Tepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Passes.
Thank you. Item H, a resolution authorizing an emergency food service contract for the Kane County Juvenile Justice Center, the tune of $23,760 coming from our Judicial Public Safety.
Leonard moves.
Leonard moves.
Ford seconds.
Ford second, discussion.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Mr.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a one comment on that. The director of the Juvenile Justice Center, Mike Davis, went to Aramar, who does the food service for the adult detention center, and secured a contract for $1.80 per meal. And it was an emergency requirement because he had 4 people in the kitchen for the Juvenile Justice Department, and 3 of them were gone. So he's down to 1 person. So not only did he take care of the problem, but he actually reduced our cost. And he said he's going to look at possibly getting the same contract for the Juvenile Justice Center as Sheriff Hain has for the adult center. And it would be a savings to the county. And I guess the quality of the food is excellent. So I think it's a great move on Mike Davis's part.
$1.80 a meal. Sturgis.
That's so much better than the food truck system that we were bringing. So it's perfect.
Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Don't ask.
What can you possibly have for $1.80 a meal? I know it's in bulk, I get it, but
Let me just put it this way. It's a nutritious, good meal. So I guess the juveniles that are there are very happy with it, as are the adult inmates at the jail. And so it's a good system. Aramark does a great job. It's a way that we can actually improve service and lower cost.
that's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, and I think Mike Davis deserves a lot of credit on this. So would be nice, Madam Chair, if you wouldn't mind maybe just giving him a call and a pat on the back, because this was an emergency situation. He handled it beautifully.
I will. And also I'd like to have 24 of those meals, or at least 12 of them sent here, and we can have breakfast or lunch here to see what they taste like. If we're paying for it, we should enjoy the food as well, see what it'll make recommendation.
Would you like to go there for lunch?
Indeed.
Yeah, any meal, you can go there and have.
All right, where are we? Did we?
Roll
Need to
call.
vote.
Roll call?
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Sturgis, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Passes.
Thank you. All right, I, a resolution authorizing contract extension for the Kane County snow plowing services coming from our administration committee and to the tune of $160,000 for 1 year.
Leonard moves.
Leonard moves,
Sturgis seconds.
Sturgis second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Sturgis, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Oh, we're good. We're good.
H, did I-
We did that.
huh?
Yeah, we're fine.
We're okay. J, resolution authorizing the change order with Integral Construction Incorporated for the construction of the Ogden Gardens Water Trust Water Storage Tank and Building coming from development.
Martin moves.
$119,700.
Ford seconds.
We have a motion to approve in a second. Did you get that?
Martin and Ford.
Discussion?
Mr. Chairman, if I could offer an explanation. This amount is technically a change order, but it's there because the original design that was put together by the Water Trust, when finally approved by the EPA, required some changes that would have been incorporated into the original had that review by the EPA been completed. So it's a change order, but it brings us back to where the contract would have realistically been. And we should also note that this Water Trust operates in the same way that legally that the Mill Creek SSA does, that being that we are a conduit for expenses incurred that are paid by the residents.
And this did not have to be rebid?
No.
Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Sturgis, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Passes.
Thank you. Item K, an ordinance repealing section 2-196A of the Kane County Code and replacing it with a new section 2-196A, depositories for funds of county treasurer collector. It comes from our treasurer, Mr. Kilborn.
This is an annual housekeeping measure just to identify the financial institutions that are available for use within the county.
Sturgis moves.
Ford seconds.
Urges move, Ford second, discussion. Thank you, Mr. Kilborn. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Passes.
And item K. Ordinance repealing section, is that one we just did? No.
L,
Yeah.
L.
L, resolution authorizing renaming of funds 252 and creation of Fund 265 in compliance with the Department of Treasury Equitable Sharing Program requirements.
Leonard moves.
Leonard moves,
Surges seconds.
Surges seconds, discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Surges, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Passes.
Thank you. And item M, a resolution rescinding authorization of creation of toll bridge sales tax revenue fund, Fund 306. Mr. Anza.
Yes, I'd just like to explain that in the beginning, when we were trying to set up the accounting for the toll bridge revenue, we thought we needed to actually have a separate fund in which to record the receipts of the sales tax that will be collected to be as a reserve to pay the debt service. But instead, we learned that instead of creating a brand new separate fund, we could keep those funds within the sales tax fund, but just in a separate line item within the existing fund. So there's no need to create this brand new fund. And so we have, since the board officially authorized the creation of it, we now have to have the board authorize or the rescinding of that. So that's why it's here.
Question, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Joe, so this is toll money, but it's in a sales help me just understand that just a bit.
Part of when we issued the toll bridge revenue bonds, these bonds were issued as part of the agreement with the debt service was agreed to be paid by, of course, the toll revenue coming in. But in the event the toll revenue would be insufficient to pay for the debt service, our RTA sales tax dollars are on reserve as a backup. And so they're never actually touched. It's only in the event that there's insufficient toll revenue.
Thank you. Understand.
It's collateral.
Yeah, got it.
Any other comments or discussions? We did have a motion, did we?
I don't have a first or
Okay,
second.
we need a motion. We need a motion.
Surges moves.
Leonard
Sturgis
seconds.
moved, Leonard second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Surges, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Thank you. Item N, a resolution amending King County financial policies to clarify use of budgetary savings resulting from vacancies. And this is coming from our Human Services.
Surges moves.
Ford seconds.
Surges moves, Ford second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Surges, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Passes.
And O, a resolution amending Kane County financial policies to add policy regarding educational assistance.
Surges moves.
Surges moves,
Ford seconds.
Ford second, discussion. Hearing no discussion, roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
you were cut off, Martin.
Martin, yes.
Thank you. Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Surges, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Passes.
Thank you. And item P, a resolution approving December 2021 claims paid, total of $16,702,394.81.
Leonard moves.
Leonard moves,
Surges seconds.
Surges seconds, discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Surges, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman.
Yes.
Passes.
Thank you. That includes our new business. I have no old business. Reports be placed on file. Do we have a motion to approve?
Leonard moves.
Leonard moves,
Pepe seconds.
MP seconds, discussion, all those. Oh, Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Sturgis, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman.
Thank you. Berman, yes. I'd like to have a little budget discussion, if we could. I think we all know that our 2022 proposed budget came in at the $16 million deficit to begin with. And we narrowed that down by deleting majority of the request changes and then dipped into our reserves and ARP money to pay for it. So we were able to balance the budget. How we got to that point is hard to say, but it goes without saying that we went through a period of time that we have not had there's been a cost of living increase over the years, but we have not had an increase in any of our taxes for the county. So we all know that, and we've heard from our department heads that they're having difficulty hiring and maintaining employees based on the salaries that are being offered by the county. So we know that's a significant issue that we need to address in the future. Our 2023 budget will probably take more reserves and more ARP money. And thanks to the federal government, I guess, for ARP that we've been able to cover us. But we're looking beyond that. We're saying that we have a need for increase in revenue. And the method that's been discussed is voter approval of a sales tax for the county. Well, that's great, but if that's not approved, what are we going to do? And I think my thoughts are that the only thing I see in our future, if we are not going to get a sales tax increase to cover, that the only we can do is cut back on what our expenses are. So what I propose is that in the next 60 days, we put together teams of our trustees to work with our department heads and come up with a plan that if necessary, we have a 10% decrease in expenses plan for our 2023-24 budget. So that's what I see in our future, and that's the way that I think that we have to approach it. If we don't take those steps now, we'll be caught up with the short side of it. So, Mr. Sturgis.
Mr. Chair, thank you so much. Just a reminder that Human Services does have our business analysis report that is in the works right now. And we look forward to having that data come out as that's available. I think this is absolutely the natural next step to take place. And I would personally be happy to work with, whoever as that data is available. I don't expect that for a few months yet. But if we could work in conjunction with setting up what that might look like as that data comes in for analysis, that would be spectacular.
I have no problem with that. I think that we can't put it off. I mean,
Absolutely agree.
we have to come up with the alternative to passing a sales tax. So as much as we like to say the future is going to handle itself, we've got to prepare better than what we have.
Agreed.
Madam Chairman.
Thank you. I was reviewing our financial policies, and one of them states that we should not use short-term money for long-term needs, which is very wise. One-term grant money, which we can consider the ARP funds, a shot in the arm, like a B12 shot, but it's not going to keep us going for the long term. So developing these long-term solutions, it's going to be very beneficial to the board to be able to realize that some of the departments may be as lean as they possibly can get. We've talked about mandated services to make sure that we're in complete compliance with what we have to do. And then take a look at what we do not have to do and make judicial suggested edits to those activities as so needed. So absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up.
I thank you, and I thank you for the cooperation of the entire board to attempt to what should I say, not solve, but adjust to our future requirements, so. I don't know of any other way, so if somebody has a better way, let's hear about it.
Mr. Chair, Tepe here.
Happy? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been a vocal critic of the fact that the board has failed to now for 10 years do a regular increase that it's allowed. The increase for this year is now capped at 5% because inflation in our area is at 7.5%. That 5% increase in the property tax bill would amount to about $20 per average household, and would generate, my guess is approximately $3 million, which is a far cry from the amount of money that we're going to need to fill in the budget. But I additionally support the idea of let's start dealing with the budget process now and start looking at it. So I heartily endorse the plan to begin to look at it, and I'll be happy to personally actively contribute and work with whatever department or departments you want to assign. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Tepe. Any other comments?
Just
Madam
one,
Chair.
I was going through some history of Kane County's finances. And to note, 20 years ago in 2002, the finance director shared with then the current board that there was not enough revenue coming in to meet expenses, and that they were going to be, the board was going to be compromised. 20 years later, we're in the same position. And philosophically, we all can compliment the board for its action of being fiscally prudent. We just mentioned the food, and being very conservative with choices of increasing revenue. But there has to come a point when I'm very much afraid, taking a look at the 2017 mandated services study that had mentioned that many departments were cut to the bone at that point. That has continued with no changes in revenue, except for the ARP fund and the CARE Act money. So this exercise is going to be critically important, not just to take a look at what is necessary to keep our budget balanced, but really take a look at what appropriate revenue sources we would take a look at, whether it's increasing gasoline tax, property tax, trying to pass a countywide sales tax, to have that exercise before we approach it to our constituents. Because money is tight right now. So we want to make sure that we have a balanced approach and a rational approach and an approach based on data. So thank you. I'd like to thank all the board members for agreeing to do this, and Mr. Onzek for kind of leading us through and helping me out answer a myriad of questions that are yet to come.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To the best of my knowledge, we don't need an executive session. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Kenyon?
He can't, he's not.
I'm an observer.
Sir just moves.
100 seconds.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're out of here.